Welcome back to the channel, family, and another podcast. My name is Paul, a very happy member of CA, and I'm absolutely delighted today to have been joined by Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm a recovered addict from Ipswich in Suffolk.
Really good to hear you, Jenny. And Ashley.
Hi, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Ashley. I'm a recovered drug addict. Thank you.
Glad
Calling
you're
from
with me, Ashley.
Peterborough.
Thanks so much for coming here. And Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine, a very grateful recovered addict. I'm in Widnes in the UK.
Great to see you, Catherine. Thanks for coming along today. So we're going to be taking a look through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We've each brought a topic and we're each going to share back on each other's topic. So on the channel, there are lots of podcasts about recovery, and there are various on an entire psychic change, the spiritual malady, the ABCs of addiction. There's also lots of personal stories. There are podcasts on each of the steps. So please check out all that information later on. In the broadcast, we'll have information about meetings, how to get to face-to-face and online meetings. So bear in mind, you can pause or rewind the podcast whenever you like. Please feel free to share it. Wherever you see this posted on intherooms.com or YouTube or Skype or WhatsApp, feel free to get involved in the conversation. So without further ado, I'm really pleased to hand the floor over to Jenny, who's going to share from the big book and her experience and perspective on that. So over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Paul. Like I said, I'm Jenny. I'm a recovered addict, and I was going to read chapter 9, The Family Afterwards, or a portion of it. So on page 122. And I was going to start from the beginning and read a couple of pages. Our womenfolk have suggested certain attitudes towards the wife may take with the husband who is recovering. Perhaps they've created the impression that he is to be wrapped in cotton wool and placed on a pedestal. Successful readjustments means the opposite. All members of the family should meet upon the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. This involves a process of deflation. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, his in-laws, each one is likely to have fixed ideas about the family's attitude towards himself or herself. Each is interested in having his or her wishes respected. We find that more one member of the family demands that the others concedes to him, the more the resentful, we find the more that one member of the family demands the others concede to him, the more resentful they become. This makes for discord and unhappiness. And why? Is it not because each wants to play the lead? Is each trying to arrange the family to show his liking? Is it not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family rather than give? Cessation of drinking is the best step away from a highly strained, abnormal condition. A doctor said to us, years of living with an alcoholic is almost adverse to making any wife or child neurotic. The entire family has to some extent ill. Let families realize that they start their journey, that all will not be fair weather. Each has on his turn maybe footsore and maybe struggling. There may be alluring shortcuts by the paths down which they may want to wander and lose their way. Suppose we tell you that the more obstacle families will meet, suppose we suggest that they may be avoided, even converted to good use for others. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. They remember when the father was romantic and thoughtful and successful. Today's life is measured against that of the other years when it falls short. The family may be unhappy. I shall stop there and share back. This reading, or this whole chapter, is about the family afterwards, and this tells me the way that it's read that things were good at one point, and everybody remembers when everything was good and everybody was happy, and then the drinkings or the using started, and that caused chaos and upheaval and put a strain on the relationships. And the children became unhappy, the wife became unhappy, or the husband became unhappy, but generally everybody was unhappy while the spouse was using. And for me, I was the one that caused the upheaval. I was the one that caused the unhappiness. And for me, it was the breakdown of my marriage. I mean, my husband just could not live with me. I mean, he left me with a baby and a 4-week-old. And that was as a result of my using. And that was devastating to me, because to be left with a small child, a toddler, and a newborn baby, while I was still in active addiction, was just absolutely devastating. I can't find another word for it, but it was all my fault. I mean, since I've stopped using, the damage done to my children is such that they still don't trust me. But then again, 27 and 28 years of lying and manipulation can't be undone in 9 months of sobriety. So I've just celebrated a milestone of 9 months. And I can't expect that my milestone of 9 months is enough sobriety to prove to my children that things are going to be different, although it goes a long way to prove that things are going to be different, because I've remained clean for 9 months. So that proves to them that I'm trying. I mean, hopefully that the upshot of it is the longer that I remain clean, the better that our relationship is going to become. I mean, my son started calling me mum again instead of Jenny, which, I'm so pleased about, and it made me so happy that it made me cry. But it wasn't tears of sadness this time, it was tears of joy, because it used to make me cry when he called me Jenny. I mean, and for him to now start calling me mum again was just an amazing transformation. But yeah, I shall leave it there and let someone share back on that, if anybody else has got anything to say about it.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Jenny. That was great. Thank you so much. Great to hear you as always. Ashley, do you want to come in for 3 or 4 minutes and share back?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And yeah, thanks, Jenny, for the reading. Yeah, I'm Ashley. I'm a recovered drug addict. Yeah, you know what I got out of that reading that you read beautifully there, Jenny, was where it said at the top, our women folk have suggested certain attitudes a wife may take with his husband who is recovering. And for me, that brief sentence there, right at the top where it says, our women folk have suggested certain attitudes a wife may take with his husband. And me, getting into that sort of place was, bringing loved ones, which was the wife, down alongside me with my addiction and, the construction and, yeah, just the complete devastation and the demoralization of how I'm making others feel when I'm using, because that's ultimately what I was doing to loved ones and family members, and destroying their lives, and not only my life, destroying their life, and getting their hopes up, and making them believe that I'm not going to do it again. But that's what I came to believe, that I there was going to be a time and a place where I'd do it again, and that's just been my experience, that I'm not immune from this, but it, you know, it just seems apparent that I'm, you know, I've been restored to sanity around that first thought and that idea that you know, it's and that's what this program's about. And you know, my experience is just you know, tapping into this power and you know, seeing what you know, seeing what the chapters mean to me. And this one means, you know, quite a bit, because you know, that's what I related to at the top that Jenny read. But yeah, I'll leave it there, Paul. Thank you.
Good stuff, Ashley. Thanks for sharing. Catherine, come on in.
Hi, Catherine, recovered addict. Thank you so much, Jenny. I absolutely love this chapter, and I love how it's like straight after. So we've gone through all the steps, done step 12, working with others. You know, we've really worked on ourselves, and it really made me look at my family and the devastation that I caused through my addiction. And although we recover quite quickly, or certainly I did, by working the steps and having that program in my life, having a God in my life, it takes a lot longer for your family to recover, or it certainly is for mine. You know, it says here, is he not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family life rather than give? You know, I've got 20 plus years of just seeing what I could get, what I needed. It was all about me. You know, I had a child and in addiction, and you know, even that, it was like, what could I get out of this? It was never about how can I be of like service to my family. And it's quite different now. You know, as much I do a lot of service in CA, but I see being there for my family now as a recovered addict. I see that as a major part of my service. I've got to be there for them. I've got to stay strong for them. And my mum made a comment the other week, you know, it's going to take years and years of me doing this work to be able to have the trust. I've never been married. Unfortunately, I think I was married to cocaine. That was the ultimate thing in my life. But you know, my mum and my daughter, you know, it's apparent every day how much I have hurt them through constantly using, and the manipulation, and you know, the lies. It is heartbreaking to think of, but I have got to forgive myself for that. Otherwise, I can't grow in my sobriety. Where it says years of living with an alcoholic is almost sure to make any wife or child neurotic. And you know, the sleepless nights that my family have had, not knowing what was coming the day after. It talks about like being a whirlwind in earlier on in the book, and that was just me. You know, it was complete. I just wrecked everything around me, because I couldn't stop using. To the entire family is to some extent ill, and they are, but as you know, I've learned as well that words mean absolutely nothing. It's all about my actions now. And by doing what I do every day, working my program, you know, the ripple effect is spreading out to my family. And you know, that's what's giving me my inner peace, knowing that I'm not hurting people like I used to. And you know, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm far from perfect. But if I keep close to this program and close to my God and do the right thing, you know, it's going to take time, but my family will recover as well. And they are recovering one day at a time. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thanks so much, Catherine. Great portion of the book. Thanks, Jenny, for bringing that. And it really got me thinking. I remember in my early 20s having to leave a relationship because it was so unmanageable. You know, I was trying to get clean, and the other person didn't want to get clean. It was just very unmanageable. I had to make the very difficult decision to come out. And then fast forward, what, a decade, just over a decade, you know, one of my partners left me at 2 years clean. You know, I was completely clean. Everything was going really, really well. So I thought, so folks can leave for different reasons. You know, the effects upon the family. You know, folks can hold on to grudges about your drinking and using. I remember the mother of my daughter, she didn't believe I was clean. You know, coming up 2.5 years of continuous sobriety, she didn't believe it. She said, "Oh no, you're not clean." "No, I am clean." "No, no, you're not." She just wouldn't have it, you know. So, you know, and I was also reminiscing, Jenny, about in recent history, someone that I was working with, and, you know, the real upset and grief. You know, I had the privilege of working with someone with their family there as well, you know, doing the step work with the family there as well. And it was a very powerful experience, you know. They were very, very moved, really, that, you know, about the knowledge and the wisdom in the step work and in the literature, you know. Yeah, so it's a great bit of the book. And, you know, making reparations, talks there about the financial consequences. You know, I'm still living in the financial consequences many, many years after. Yeah, so it's a great topic, really, Jenny. I think I'll just leave it there for now. And I'm just going to hand it over to Ashley, who's going to share from the book for a couple of minutes and then share on his thoughts on it. Over to you, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I'm going to read, it's page 309, and it's called My Chance to Live. And it starts off at the top by saying AA gave this teenager the tools to climb out of a dark abyss of despair, came through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous at age 17. A walking contradiction on the outside. I was the portrait of a rebellious teenager with miles of attitude to spare. On the inside, I was suicidal, bloodied and beaten. My stride spoke of confidence I didn't feel. My dress was that of a street tough kid you didn't want to mess with. Inside, I was trembling with fear that someone would see through my defense to the real me. If you saw who I really was, you would turn away in disgust or use my weakness to destroy me. One way or the other, I was convinced I'd be hurt. I couldn't allow that to happen, so I kept the real me veiled behind it at a force field of rough-edged attitudes. How I got to this place is still a mystery to me. I grew up in a loving middle-class home. We had our problems, what family doesn't, but there was no abuse, verbal or physically, and it certainly couldn't be said my parents didn't do the best they could by me. My grandfathers were alcoholic, and I was raised on stories of how it had ravaged their lives and their lives, all of those around them. Nope, I didn't want to be an alcoholic. In my early teen years, I began to be bothered by feelings that I didn't fit in. Until this point, I had ignored the fact that I wasn't one of the in crowd. I thought if I tried hard enough, I would fit in sooner or later. At 14, I stopped trying. I quickly discovered the soothing effects of drink, telling myself I would be more careful than unfortunate grandparents. I set out to feel better. Drinking released me from suffocating fear, the feelings of inadequacy, and the nagging voices at the back of my head told me I would never measure up all of those things melted away when I drank. The bottle was my friend, my companion, a portable vacation. Whenever life was too intense, alcohol would take the edge off or obliterate the problem altogether for a time. And I'll leave it there, and I'll share back on that. So yeah, the reason why I chose that part of the book, you know, because there is so many different stories around this book, and you know, obviously going through the steps and being interested on what it is, you know, what else is there within this book. And that stuck out to me when I read that. And you know, when I read that top bit where it says my chance to live, it, you know, from my experience, this is what it is, that this is the deal that's on offer. You know, if anyone's new listening to this for the first time, you know, this, to me, this is the only way that I can live normally around around, you know, not using. And from what I, you know, related to within that chapter that I read, where it says, telling myself I would be more careful than my unfortunate grandparents set out to feel better. Drinking released me from the suffocating fear, feelings of inadequacy, and the nagging voices at the back of my head told me I would never measure up. All those things melted away. I drank. The bottle was my friend, my companion, a portable vacation whenever life was too intense. And that's been my experience with using drugs and in general, really. You know, because I couldn't deal with society, and I didn't really want to be a part of it. So that's how I came to, you know, relate to what he was saying. And you know, that's my, and then this is the beauty about the book. And you know, it comes alive, and we can, or you know, majority of us and all of us can relate to things that are being said and read about the book. And you know, for me, is I just wanted to stop. But that's why I came into Cocaine Anonymous, because I couldn't stop on my own. And you know, this is the whole point in this process. You know, I didn't come in here because I wanted to, you know, I wanted to have some fun. I came in here because I was in trouble, really. And this was the only last, you know, this was the last sort of stop on the bus, should I say. And I got off that bus pretty early. But yeah, I just relate to a lot of things that were read in that chapter that I read there. You know, as much as I wanted to stop, I couldn't. And you know, luckily for me, I tapped into this power, and you know, I'm able to share it with other people. But yeah, thank you for letting me share with me that part of the book. Thanks.
Good stuff, Ashley. Thanks for sharing. Great message. Catherine, come on in.
Hi, Caffeine Addict. Ashley, thank you so much. There's so much information in the back of the book, isn't there? A walking contradiction, you know, as a teenager. That's how I was. I've shared before, I was this like happy, smiling Catherine on the outside, but inside I was trembling with fear. You know, it's quite hit me quite hard, this story. And he's only young, and for me, my addiction started young, and I truly believe my addiction to wanting to be someone different than who I was came from a very early age, before I even took a drink or drug. Not fitting in, you know, I would change everything about myself to fit in with whoever, anyone, didn't matter who it was, anyone at all. And then that line, I quickly discovered the soothing effects of a drink. And, you know, the first few years of my using, mine was mainly drugs, but that soothing effect of being taken away from being the person that I was inside, because I just couldn't live with myself inside who I was. And how delusional is that? Drinking released me from the suffocating fear. And you know, the word suffocating, I can actually feel that feeling as you read it. And it is like the walls coming in on you, that absolute fear that I used to live in, inadequacy, nagging voices telling me I'd never measure up. It's so true. And that is exactly how I felt. And I continued for years and years and years because I didn't know any other way. A portable vacation. I mean, how amazing does that sound? You know, a portable holiday. But you know what? That the relief that drugs gave me didn't last, and it just didn't last forever at all. And I've come into CA absolutely broken. And, you know, this is a solution that does last. I see it on meetings. I speak to people, and you know they've got a long time of been clean and sober, and I have to just keep, you know, this is for life. We can recover for life. We don't have to feel how we used to feel, and it's a beautiful program, and it really does open your heart and your eyes up to the world around you. You know, there's so much to live for, and we don't have to use to escape them feelings anymore, because the steps help fix you internally and deals with all that internal like disgust and self-hate that I felt. By working the steps, that's released all that. Forever grateful, absolutely so grateful, and that story's really just hit home. So thank you so much for choosing that, Ashley.
Good stuff, Catherine. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's a great bit of the book. It really got me thinking about internal unmanageability, which can result in, and did result in, external unmanageability. That's what I was thinking of with this story. So what does that mean? Well, it means not being content without being in a mood and mind altered state. The desire for drunkenness, the desire for being high, the desire for being inebriated, and anyone can get clean in 12-step recovery, whether you're a weekend binge drinker or living out of the spoon half a dozen times a day or the pint for 25 years. You know, anyone can get and stay clean. Absolutely. And that's been my experience. You know, I've seen many folks get and stay clean in these rooms. And, you know, what it really boils down to is the result of working this program thoroughly, the result of having a face-to-face home group, an online home group, a commitment to consistent step work with a sponsor who knows what they're talking about, a commitment to reading the literature each day, a commitment to prayer and abstinence, a commitment to being agreeable with God. These things, in my experience, have always produced a sober man or a woman. I can't tell you what parts of that equation you can leave out and stay clean, but the reality is folks do leave elements out and stay clean, and more power to them. God love them. But what I can tell you is if you do all those things, you will definitely stay sober. And many of the consequences, some of which are mentioned in this story, actually, that you've read from, can be addressed. You know, financial, mental, physical, marital, industrial, all the consequences that a good sponsor will have you list as part of your step one work can be addressed through this process, through learning to listen and listening to learn. And emotional sobriety, emotional maturity, and ego deflation, I think, are the gifts of this program. And that means that when someone upsets me, you know, I'm not running over to the nearest boozer or the nearest crack den. You know, I've got spiritual tools to handle it and find solution, you know, and it really is a great bit of the book. You know, and of course, self-medicating was the name of the game. You know, being in an altered state, uncomfortable in one's own skin, the inner unmanageability that resulted in external unmanageability and all the consequences. And of course, drugs are very Moorish, you know, so the desire to be constantly high or constantly drunk is what most of us faced in these rooms. You know, it wasn't just an occasional thing. And you know, having some balance around feelings, how we feel towards God, how we feel towards the devil, how we feel towards our families and our circumstances, you know, how we relate to the Creator, how we relate to external situations. You know, many persons' response is to get drunk, you know, and to stay drunk. And then that becomes a solution. And then the solution that we have becomes the problem. And then we need a proper solution, you know, and we have a solution in these rooms. And we know exactly how it works. You know, it begins with abstinence and continues with practicing a daily program of action. So great topic, Ashley. It really is. Thanks so much for bringing that. Catherine, over to you.
Hello, Catherine.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. I'm sorry. It's Jenny's time to share on Ashley's topic. I'm so sorry, Catherine. Sorry, I'm going round in a circle and I got mixed up. It's Jenny to comment on what Ashley brought. And then it's you to bring your topic, yeah.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Jenny. I'm a recovered addict. Yeah, I mean, this is a. I mean, I loved reading this when I read through it. And where it says that until this point, I had ignored the fact that I wasn't one of the in crowds. I later thought if I tried hard enough, I would fit in sooner or later. I mean, that was me. I never fitted in anywhere. In each group or circle of acquaintances that I was involved with, I never felt like I fitted in. And I tried so hard to do so, but never quite got there. And drugs just eased that fact that I didn't fit in. And I used enough drugs to numb the fact that I wasn't fitting in. If I used enough drugs, it didn't matter to me that I wasn't fitting in because I was so high that I didn't care what I felt. So in effect, I stopped trying. I mean, I was a little older than 14, but I mean, I started doing it at 13. I mean, using drugs released me from the suffocating feelings of inadequacy and from the nagging voices in the back of my head that told me that I would never measure up, as the reading says. You know, this reading in itself, there's several parts that jump out at me. And where it says my dress was that of a street tough kid, yet you see you didn't want to mess with. Yet on the inside, I was trembling with fear that someone would see through my defenses to the real me. I mean, I dressed to impress. I used to wear provocative. In my early teens, I'd wear short skirts, high heels. The high heels that in fact I couldn't walk in because I'm disabled. I have club feet. So wearing high heels, I just looked stupid trying to walk in them. But I thought if I wore them, that it helped me fit into the crowd that I was in with. I mean, you know, just thus making worse the situation that I was already found myself in. I mean, trying to fit in throughout my life, even as an adult, I would do things that I thought people wanted me to do to try and make them happy. I was a complete people pleaser. I mean, and this got me into several forms of trouble, the worst of which was ending up in prison because I was transporting drugs from one place to another. And my girlfriend at the time got jealous that I wouldn't pick her up. So she grasped me up to the police and I ended up getting pulled over and stopped. And I ended up in prison for 10 months and 4 months on tag. I mean, that was as a result of trying to fit in, you know, because I had this girlfriend that was beautiful, she was popular, and I was living vicariously through her. And because we were both drug users, I tried to fit into her crowd, and it just didn't work for me. I mean, that was just the process of how things worked for me. Yeah, the drinking released me from the suffocating fear of inadequacy. Excuse me. Drinking released me from the suffocating fear, the feelings of inadequacy, the nagging voices at the back of my head that told me that I would never measure up. That was definitely how I was feeling. I mean, that just says it all. I mean, I don't really need to add any more to that, but you know, I did try. But when I was in prison and got sober for a little while, I learned a little bit about myself, because thankfully they had a program in there where I was seeing a psychiatrist, and she was helping me deal with the feelings that started to come back as a result of me not using. I mean, and that was the start of my journey into recovery. But unfortunately, it didn't last, because as soon as I got out, I then went straight back to using again, which was all I ever knew. When I came into this program 9 months ago and started dealing with my feelings, I now know that I don't have to fit in. I can be myself. I can be a little bit wacky and out there, and people are going to either like me or not like me. And it doesn't matter to me now whether people like me or not. You know, all that matters to me is getting clean and sober and staying that way. And it's incidental whether people like me. If people do, then all the better. But if not, then I feel that it's their loss, not mine. And it doesn't matter to me now whether they like me or not. I mean, I'm no longer trying to fit into the in crowd. You know, I am the in crowd. I'm the in crowd of recovery to myself. And I don't need anybody else to validate me anymore. I mean, to have friends is nice, but I no longer use people or need people to validate me or to make me feel good about myself, because, you know, I've got recovery that does that for me. And that to me is everything now. I mean, working the 12 steps, going through them, taking other people through them, that helps validate me. That gives me purpose. This program gives me purpose. Doing service on a couple of meetings, and taking sponsees through the work. That's all I need now to validate me. I no longer need other people to tell me that I'm doing it right. And that's all that matters now. And I shall leave it on that. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jenny. Great to hear you. Thanks for sharing. Now, the lovely Catherine has a topic that she's going to bring and then share on it. Come on in, Catherine.
Thank you, Paul. Catherine, recovered addict. So I'm going to read from How It Works, page 62 and a little bit of 63. So selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our life, of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past we have made a decision based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Though he usually doesn't think so, above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it will kill us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us have moral and convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter, in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch which we passed to freedom. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or hereafter. We were reborn. Such a powerful part of the book. And, talked about our root problem, selfishness, self-centeredness, fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. Was huge on the self-pity and the self-seeking. I wouldn't actually do anything for anyone. I'd done a lot for people, but I always expected something back. It was always about me, even when I was being kind, which I thought then was being kind. It wasn't. I always wanted something back. And where it says it put us in a position to be hurt, and it did. Every time I'd do something for someone, expecting something back in return, and when I didn't get that back, the only person it hurt was me. And it got quite severe. Self-will run riot, and it shows it's very clear here to get rid of this self-will, that it warns us we must lose it or it will kill us. That is the only place I was going to end up, buried, if I carried on the way I was. God makes it possible. And, living a God-conscious life, leaning on God for pretty much everything. As much as I thought I was independent, I wasn't independent at all. But by putting all my dependence into my God, it's actually making me grow into an independent woman. I've got this relationship, and, it says, quit playing God. We can't be God. We have to have God in our life to be able to cope with life. And it says simply, doesn't it? Make God your principal. He's the father, we're his children. And I've got a drawing of it here. We need our foundations, which is step one. We need our cornerstones. And then we need the keystone, which is the top part of the arch that keeps it all in place. So when we put God as that keystone, it keeps everything else in place. And I love the paragraph on page 63. It's pretty much like describing what a spiritual awakening is. The more we become interested in seeing what we can contribute to life, the better we get, the further away from addiction we get. A new power flow into us. The only power I had in me in active addiction was where I was going to get my next bag, when I was going to get it, how I was going to get it. That was the only power in my life. And it's been replaced now by working the steps with my sponsor, doing service, working with others. That power's flowed into me. I've got God in me now, and I can face life successfully. It's been a pretty tough few days, and you know what? I was talking earlier to a friend. Even in the hardest times, I'm still at peace within myself. I've still got love and kindness for myself, because I let God run my life now. I really do. I've completely handed over all my will to God, because when I'm running on Catherine's will, it's chaotic, it's awful, it's no way of living. But I'm finding by living a God-conscious life and handing my will over hourly sometimes, you know, I do it every morning, every night, but I do it a lot of times in the day as well. I've got to take myself out of the equation, put God in. What would God have me do? How would God have me be? And you know what? It seems to be working. And yeah, it says we were reborn. You know, I've grown into a woman I could have only wished I could be. I would sit, you know, in addiction, thinking, why can't I be like that person? Why can't I do this? Why can't I have this life? And you know what? If you are sat there in active addiction at the minute, just take a leap of faith. You know, if anyone is struggling, if I can recover from the absolute mess I was in, anyone can do it. Just, you know, have a little go, give yourself a chance. Everyone deserves the chance of this life that recovery brings. And yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Catherine. I'll just chime in briefly. Recovered addict, glad to be clean. Yeah, I mean, becoming agreeable to God, that's what it is. If God sets you free, you're free indeed. That's it. You know, we've recovered. We've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state, mind and body. You know, miracles happen here. You know, the transformation happens. You know, the obsession to drink and drug ourselves to destruction is removed. You know, we recover. The transformation happens. And, you know, really, you know, getting the opposite for self-centeredness is God-centeredness, you know, and we have to work at it on a daily basis. The battle of the mind is every day. You know, the opportunity to practice spiritual principles is every day. You know, if you're working with others, a member shared earlier, you know, working with others, you know, you'll be tested. God doesn't tempt us, but we are tested, you know, and God refines us into pure gold and improves us and changes us. The miracle of recovery is a daily journey. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and slow and steady wins the race. You know, consistency is the thing. Anyway, who is next? Now, let me think now. It is Jenny. Come on in, Jenny. You're muted.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute there for a second. Yeah, I mean, this part of the book it's one of my favorite chapters, how it works. I mean, where it says, oh, sorry, I've lost my place. I do apologize.
Page
Yeah,
62.
selfishness, self-centeredness, that's what we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocations. We inevitably find that at some point in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later places us in a position to be hurt. I mean, I found this in many times in my life that, you know, I've done things and forgotten about them, yet people have held a grudge and then brought it back and punished me for it later. And I've thought, what have I done to deserve that? And then when it's pointed out to me what I've done, and I'm like, well, I'm really sorry, but that was a long time ago. Why are you bringing it up now? And you know, these things are just sent to try us. And it's only by relying heavily on God and having a connection with a higher power that we get over these sorts of issues and situations. And like I said, I absolutely love this chapter in the book. I read it frequently. So, you know, it is a really good chapter, and it brings us closer to God, as does we agnostics. But, you know, this chapter tells us how to do it and points out that all our troubles, and it points out about fear, because fear, we think, is the root of all our troubles. you know, and then we have the third step prayer at the a few paragraphs down, you know, which God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those that I would help in my love, thy power, thy way of life, may I do thy will always. And of course, there's no amen at the end of that, because the third step and the seventh step prayer are connected, and the amen's at the end of the seventh step prayer. I mean, all the prayers in the book are connected, but these two in particular, the third step and the seventh step prayer, are very connected, and the amen's at the end of the seventh step prayer. And I know that we didn't get down to reading the third step prayer, but, you know, I thought it was important, so that's why I added it in. Because to me, I do that prayer every morning, and it helps me connect every morning to my higher power. And yeah, it is to me very important, and it's so important that I have a higher power in my life now, because without it, I wouldn't get along as well as I do, because without prayer and meditation, I'm relying heavily on my higher power and putting all my trust in that thing which I call God, which I don't have a problem with saying God now. Because when I first came in, I had such a problem with the word God. I mean, to me, God was something that was punishing, that smited people, that killed your firstborn sons, that sent plagues, that wiped out whole civilizations because they were not worthy of living. So that was God to me. So my God had to be different. It had to be loving, forgiving, caring, all-knowing, but not judging. And that's what I made my higher power to be. You know, when I did my step 4, that's when I discovered that I had a higher power. I mean, I realized that it had been with me all the way along the line. I just wasn't connected to it. Although when I quit heroin 12 years ago on the 26th of October 2009, I did pray to that higher power, but it was a negative prayer, because I was just praying, God, take away this withdrawal symptoms, stop me from hurting, stop me from being so sick. I wasn't praying in the positive. I wasn't thanking God for helping me get through the withdrawals. I wasn't thanking God for giving me the strength to get through it without picking up, which is what I should have been doing. You know, and later on when I was in prison, when they stopped my meds, again, I prayed in the negative. I didn't pray, thank you for not letting me die when I was having seizures. You know, I was just praying, please God, stop this from happening. Let them give me some medication, make me feel better, because that was the answer to the problem, as far as I could see it. But, you know, God got me through it. And now I can see that. But at the time, I thought God had forsaken me. I thought God didn't love me. But God does love me. God loves me very much, and is indeed there for me, and has got me through sort of several situations which I didn't think I'd be able to get through alone. But God got me through them and some. I mean, God gives me not what I want, but what I need, because God knows what I need and provides it for me. He gives me some of the things I want, but, you know, for the most part, he just gives me what I need, and that's enough for me. And I shall leave it there. Thank you for bringing this reading to me.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was beautiful. Thank you. Ashley, come on in.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, thanks for the reading, Catherine. Yeah, I really related to a lot of that. You know, when I came into the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous, yeah, I'm a recovered drug addict, but yeah, when I came into the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous, I you know, I came across this part of the book, and you know, I thought, wow, this is, you know, this is how it works. You know, it's given me an insight of how this stuff works and what I need to kind of do going forward. And you know, where it says, you know, so our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will and riot. And then it also goes on to say, going on to 63, when we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer, being all powerful. He provided what we needed. You know, and I think, you know, looking at that, it was quite a big sort of thing, reading that and actually kind of understanding what I'm reading and what it is and how it, you know, what it means to me. You know, and I think everybody's got their own, you know, different values and perspectives on what it is and how this stuff is interpreted into people's lives. And I think that's the beauty of this program, that we can, you know, as a newcomer coming in, or anyone that's listening, you know, that's struggling, or, you know, that can't stay stopped, but, you know, they keep going back out there, and it's putting your own little piece of the puzzle within this to you know, to make it all make sense. And really, you know, what I found, you know, mind-blowing and, you know, amazing was that, you know, that question around you know, that thought of using was always, you know, I wasn't really going to negotiate with that thought. It was always, the thought's there, I'm just going to go and use. And but it seems to be apparent that, you know, in order for me to get to that place where I'm not questioning a using thought and then I go and use, it's really become apparent to me that I kind of had to get into a place of, you know, where I wasn't really kind of happy to use anymore. And I just got so far down, I suppose, in my own experience, that I just wanted to look at this program to kind of give me some kind of clearer perspective on the way I should be, you know, thinking around taking the steps. And you know, it's just for me, I think it's just handing it over on a daily basis, and you know, and not thinking that I know what's best, because that's what got me in these rooms, really. And yeah, if there is like anyone that's listening that's new, or that's, you know, wondering what it is that, you know, what it is that this is, and I think, you know, this is an amazing thing for anyone to get into and be a part of, because we can all recover. You know, we're all here for the same reason. We all want to get well, and, you know, this is the end game, and it's this thing that I can just be restored to this sort of neutral way of thinking around using, and it ain't easy. It's you know, it entails some you know, some commitments, and having some accountability, and being a part of the program, and putting some action in around stuff, and stuff that I wasn't doing in active addiction. But yeah, it's just, you know, that you know, a couple of years, you know, when I first came into this a couple of years ago, I couldn't really imagine that I could even sit here and talk to people and say, look, you know, the thought of using isn't there anymore. And, you know, that's just something that I can't really understand, and it's not really for me to understand. And yeah, I'll just I'll leave it there. But yeah, thank you. Cheers. Thanks again, Paul.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So I want to share briefly on page 27. I want to talk about the emotional rearrangement. I want to talk about the internal transformation. I want to talk about the mechanics of the internal change. that results in losing the obsession to drink and drug ourselves to destruction. So on page 27, there is a solution. Now, on this channel, there are entire podcasts lasting around an hour on the spiritual malady. There's one on the ABCs of addiction, and there's another called The Entire Psychic Change. So please check those out. Now, in our basic text, Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a lot of information about these vital spiritual experiences. But just now, it's a topic we could talk on for hours. I just want to read a little bit from page 27. Some of our alcoholic readers or listeners or addicted listeners may think they can do without spiritual help. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic." I've never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholic addicts have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men and women are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I've never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. Now, this transformation, this change of perspectives, this internal shift, this change is the very core, the nub, the center, the heart of abstinence-based recovery. Now, in my experience, this happens through consistently reading the recovery literature, a minimum of a couple of pages every day, consistently reading personal spiritual literature every day, consistently praying and meditating, personal inventory, building and maintaining a support network, having a home group, a face-to-face and an online home group, getting involved in service and helping others, and good self-care. What happens is there's an internal shift where the obsession is completely removed. Now, this topic is in many places. The first 43 pages of the big book is largely about step one. And there's a whole lot of other references that I wanted to include, but we're kind of almost out of time. But I just wanted us to take a minute or two each to comment on this topic of emotional rearrangement, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of these men and women, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. And that is the miracle of recovery, that persons that once lived out of a pipe, a spoon, a bottle or a wrap or a bong or foil, today are completely free, have recovered, and they've lost the obsession to drink and drug themselves to death. So, it's a wonderful thing, and it's pure gold in Cocaine Anonymous that any addict can lose the desire to use and find a new way to live. Our message itself is hope, and our promise is freedom. Jenny, do you want to come in for a minute or two and share on that?
Yes, thank you, Paul. I'm Jenny. I'm a recovered addict. It says some of our alcoholic readers may think that they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with the doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent it does in you." Our friend felt that the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. When I read that, I related to it so much. because, you know, I was not an alcoholic, but I was an addict. And I completely related to that feeling, because when I read the doctor's opinion and Bill's story and discovered that I had an illness, and it was in my mind, and that I can't escape from my mind. I'm there. I can't move away from it. I can't get a boyfriend or a girlfriend to take me away from it, because wherever I go, I take myself with me. So my addiction is there with me wherever I go, wherever I might be. I take myself with me. So there's nothing I can do about it other than use a spiritual experience to help me recover, and use the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in CA to get myself better, to recover from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And through the 12 steps and through having a spiritual awakening, I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I mean, I'm not cured, but what I have is a daily reprieve contingent of my spiritual well-being. And as long as I stay spiritually fit, I'm going to continue to stay clean and sober. But if I let parts of this program slip, I might find myself back at the dope man's door, and living back out of that pipe. But if I continue with the program, if I continue to work the 12 steps into my daily activities, if I continue to stick close to my higher power, which I choose to call God, then I'm going to be okay. I'm going to continue to stay well and stay clean and sober a day at a time. And if tonight I lay my head on the pillow and I haven't picked up a pipe, then I've done well, and that's another day down, and that's another day I can count as being completed, and you know that I'm at where I need to be. And that's what this program promises. It promises you that you never have to use again. It promises you don't have to pick up or use again. And it says that in the book. And that's what this program does. And as long as you work the program like you worked your addiction, you can't go far wrong, because if you put in 100%, you're going to get 100% back out of it. And relapse doesn't have to be part of your story. I mean, it's not part of mine so far, and I pray to God every day that it won't be. But, you know, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And that's not bringing a downer on this conversation, but it's just stating a fact that I have to work this program, and I have to work it hard. You know, there's an action program, not a thinking program. And we have to put in action. I have to put in action every day, because that's what this program asks of me. And when I first came in, my sponsor asked if I was done and if I was willing to go to any lengths, I answered that I was to both questions, and I have been. I've done exactly what she's asked of me. I haven't bulked to any situation, and I've just done exactly what she's asked, and I've got on with it. And it's led me to being 9 months clean and sober 2 days ago. So, you know, I'm exactly where I need to be, and I shall leave it on that. Thank you, Paul, for this part of the reading.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Jenny. That was great. Ashley, come on in.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. Thanks for reading that part of the book. Yeah, you know, it's given, well, it gave me some knowledge and not knowledge, I'd say, knowledge of what it is that goes on for me when I me as a person try to stop, when I try to stop, and it doesn't, I can't. And anyone that is listening, like I said earlier, it's it's something that I can't really yeah, it's a, you know, it, it's such an amazing process within the within the 12 steps. You know, that part that was read, you know, it's giving somebody hope around something they haven't been given hope before when we're in active addiction. And you know, all I ever wanted was to just have that thought put to bed. You know, it just wasn't happening. But you know, coming into these rooms, it was you know, it was that shift. And you know, having some contentment within my own self today, and you know, looking at different areas that I can improve on, and you know, getting into different things. You know, recovery gives me all these things, you know, but it's just being humble to this, and you know, looking at ways that I can improve things, and how I can improve somebody else's life within this, and you know, seeing their eyes light up when my eyes were lit up, and you know, making them sort of look at this in a different way. But yeah, I'll leave it there, Paul. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ashley. Catherine.
Hi, Catherine, recovered addict. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, so he sat there with the doctor, and the doctor saying, like, you know, can't do anything for you. And he felt the gates of hell close on him. And, you know, personally, I've sat there with doctors, psychiatrists, you know, the list is endless. And I've never been able to recover from using that way until this exception come up in my life, which was CA. And you know, having that spiritual experience, you know, it's not a religious experience, it's a spiritual experience. It's a shift of my old forces leaving me, and a new force coming into me, and that's the solution. You know, exactly as the chapter calls it, that is the solution. This myself getting taken out of the equation, this spiritual experience happening, which was beautiful, and it's beautiful every single day. And yeah, it's removed the obsession, you know, to use daily, which I was doing. And honestly, I've never, since coming back into recovery, throwing myself into it with everything I've got, like Jenny said, if you put 100% into this, you'll get 150% back. It is guaranteed. And it's all by having this vital spiritual experience. And I'm really grateful I've had that and continue to have it on a daily basis. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks so much, Catherine. You know, it's been really phenomenal listening today to you all share. And yeah, on the screen in a moment, I'm hoping to put up some information. There it is, about meetings. So if there's anyone listening that's still using drugs, we have a solution. You can get free, and you can stay free. Long-term sobriety is absolutely achievable, one day at a time, with some consistency, some transparency, some accountability. You know, please come along to a meeting. If you're in Great Britain, if you go to cocaineanonymous.org.uk, which is the web address at the top centre, you'll get lots of information about face-to-face meetings, in-person meetings. You'll also get information about Zoom meetings. Bear in mind, you can pause and rewind this podcast whenever you like. And there's lots and lots of meetings. These are just some of the meetings. The ones in blue are on every single day. So over at the top left, underneath the pink box, the Breakfast Club every day at 7:30. Great Gratitude every morning, 9:30. Pop-up Recovery, 10:30. We Can Recover, 2 p.m, 8 p.m, and 9:30 p.m. There's a meeting in the middle of the screen there that's on 24 hours a day. In the centre, lower centre, there's 2 ladies' meetings on every day at 3 p.m, 5 p.m. As I say, We Can Recover 8 p.m. and 9:30. Daily Reprieve is also on at 9:30. reaching out at 11 and Tazana at midnight. They're on every day. They're UK times, but obviously anyone's welcome around the world. So it's been a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much to the three of you. Thanks to you very much, Jenny, for coming along today. Are you there? You're muted.
Sorry, I was talking away. I was muted. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed doing this. I hope to do another one with you all another time. But yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. And we're planning on doing another in about 2 weeks' time. So you're absolutely welcome to that. And Ashley, thank you so much for your time coming along to share your experience, strength and hope with us today.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. Much appreciated. Yeah, been a really good experience, and much appreciated. But yeah, thanks again, Paul. Thanks for everyone else that's come along. Thank you.
And Catherine, always a pleasure to hear you. Great topics. Thanks for sharing and thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for inviting me, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here and hopefully spread a bit of hope.
Absolutely. Okay, family, that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. There's lots of other podcasts on the channel. Please come along to a meeting and reach out for help. Okay, bye everybody. Bye-bye.